Welcome to English Listening Practice. Today's episode, Master Your Next English Job Interview. This episode has 100 parts. Listen carefully and enjoy. Welcome to the podcast, where we help you navigate the professional English world with clarity and confidence. Picture this. You are sitting in a quiet waiting room, or perhaps staring at a blank Zoom screen, waiting for the host to let you in. Your palms are a little sweaty, and your heart is racing faster than usual. We have all been there, feeling that heavy weight of anticipation right before a job interview begins. Now, imagine adding the extra challenge of doing this in a second language. Have you ever walked into a room and suddenly forgotten a simple, everyday English word because the pressure was simply too high? It is a universally frustrating experience, feeling your vocabulary shrink precisely when you need it the most. The stakes feel incredibly high, and suddenly your mind goes completely blank. But what if we could shift that mindset entirely, changing how you view the whole process? Today, we are going to focus on turning that interview anxiety into confident, effective communication. Let's start by redefining what a job interview actually is. It is entirely too easy to view it as a terrifying interrogation where every single mistake is judged. In reality, it is simply a mutual conversation to figure out if you and the company are a good match. They have a problem they need to solve, and they are genuinely hoping you are the solution. For English learners at the upper intermediate level, there is a very common trap. Many candidates fail to show their true value because they focus entirely on having perfect grammar. They obsess over using the correct tense rather than delivering a clear, impactful message. The truth is, interviewers care far more about your professional skills than whether you missed a minor preposition. When you prepare your core messages in advance, you significantly reduce the cognitive load on your brain. You no longer have to translate every thought in your head, freeing up mental space to actually connect with the interviewer. This brings us to the most common, and perhaps the most intimidating opening question of them all. So, tell me a little bit about yourself. It sounds like a friendly icebreaker, but it often causes candidates to panic and start rambling. Without a strategy, you might end up giving a 20-minute summary of your entire childhood and education. To avoid this, we use a simple, structured timeline to keep things professional. We call it the past, present, future framework, as it builds a highly logical story. You start with a brief nod to your background, explaining where you have been. You might use signposting language like, "Before that, I worked in marketing, where I developed my analytical skills." This gives them context without overwhelming them with unnecessary historical details. Then, you bring them smoothly into your current situation. A great phrase here is, "Currently, I am managing a team of 5 at a tech startup." Notice how direct and professional that sounds to the listener? You are immediately showing them what you are capable of handling right now, today. Finally, you bridge the gap to the future, specifically connecting it to the job you are applying for. You could say, "Looking ahead, I am eager to bring my project management experience to a larger, innovative company like yours." This structure keeps your answer beautifully concise, usually well under 2 minutes. More importantly, it demonstrates right away that you are organized and goal-oriented. Remember, you are tailoring this summary to the specific role you want. You are not reciting your life story. You are curating it. Highlight only the chapters of your career that prove you are the right fit for this exact position. Once you have successfully introduced yourself, the interviewer will likely move on to behavioral questions. These are the tricky scenarios that typically begin with, "Tell me about a time when." They might ask about a time you handled a conflict, met a tight deadline, or overcame a sudden challenge. To tackle these effectively, you need a reliable framework to keep your thoughts organized. Enter the STAR method, which stands for situation, task, action, and result. This simple structure is your best friend for keeping your professional stories focused and impactful. The first step provides the background, setting the scene briefly for the listener. The second step outlines the specific challenge you were facing or the goal you needed to achieve. However, a lot of candidates spend way too much time on these first two parts. The real magic happens in the third and fourth stages of your story. This is exactly where you showcase your actual skills and your independent decision-making abilities. Let's look at a brief, clear example of a candidate using this method in real life. Imagine the interviewer asks about a time you had to deal with an angry client. You start with the context. Last year, a major client was upset because their shipment was significantly delayed. Then the objective. I needed to calm the client down and find a fast alternative solution. Now, pay close attention to the next part, where you describe what you actually did. I immediately contacted the shipping provider, negotiated an expedited delivery, and offered the client a discount on their next order. Notice the precise vocabulary there. Contacted, negotiated, offered. Using strong action verbs elevates your B2 English and makes you sound incredibly proactive. Words like managed, resolved, and implemented carry a lot of professional weight in English. Finally, we reach the conclusion, which proves that your actions were actually successful. As a result, the client received the goods the next day and eventually renewed their yearly contract with us. Ending on a positive, measurable outcome leaves a lasting impression on the interviewer. It proves you do not just talk about problems, you actively step up and solve them. By relying on this storytelling structure, you prevent yourself from getting lost in complicated English sentences. Of course, even with the best preparation, interviews are notoriously unpredictable. You might encounter a question you did not anticipate, or simply mishear what the interviewer said. This is a critical moment where panic can easily set in and derail your confidence. But handling the unexpected gracefully is a fantastic way to demonstrate your fluency and composure. If you do not fully understand a question, never try to guess the answer. Instead, use polite, professional phrases to ask for clarification. You can smoothly say, "Could you elaborate on that?" Or, "Just to make sure I understand, are you asking about?" This shows active listening and guarantees you are actually answering the right question. Sometimes you understand the question perfectly, but your brain needs a few seconds to formulate a good response. It is completely acceptable and even encouraged to buy yourself some thinking time. A natural phrase to use is, "That is a great question. Let me think about that for a second." Taking a brief pause makes you look thoughtful and deliberate, rather than unprepared. And what happens if you make a noticeable grammar or vocabulary mistake while speaking? The best approach is to simply correct yourself smoothly and keep going, or just ignore it entirely if the meaning was clear. Interviewers are evaluating your overall communication skills, not grading a strict language exam. As the conversation winds down, there is one final hurdle you need to clear. The interviewer will almost certainly ask, "Do you have any questions for us?" A major mistake candidates make here is politely declining the offer. Saying, "No, I don't have any questions. You covered everything," signals a lack of curiosity. It inadvertently makes you seem disengaged from the opportunity you are applying for. Always have 2 or 3 strong, professional questions prepared in advance. You might ask, "What does a typical day look like in this specific role?" Or perhaps, "What are the biggest challenges the marketing team is facing right now?" These questions show genuine interest and help you determine if the company is actually right for you. Alongside your spoken words, remember that confident body language and steady eye contact do wonders for projecting fluency. As we wrap up today's episode, let's quickly review the core frameworks we discussed. When faced with the classic self-introduction prompt, rely on the past, present, future structure. Keep your introduction relevant, highlighting only the experiences that make you a great fit. For those tricky behavioral questions, Lean heavily on the structured storytelling method we explored. Focus your energy on the bold actions you took and the positive results you achieved. Equip yourself with polite phrases to clarify questions and buy time when your brain needs a moment. And never leave the room without asking a thoughtful, engaging question of your own. Ultimately, an interview is just a professional conversation between two parties looking for a mutual solution. Solid preparation gives you the mental space to communicate your value naturally, even in a second language. Thank you for tuning in today, and I wish you the absolute best of luck in your next professional conversation. And that's the end of today's episode. Master your next English job interview. I hope you learned something new and enjoyed listening. Keep practicing every day. Your English is getting better and better. Follow this channel for more English listening practice. See you next time.